So that's where the story, that's where I begin as a baby in Paris. And by the age of 6, I'm fully aware of what's happening around me because things are changing. And the changes are that you hear strange noises, aeroplanes overhead. You hear a sound which is a siren which you don't recognize. It's sort of a wailing. It's a and that tells you to run because you're going to get bombed. And you have to run to the shelter no matter what time of day or night. You sleep in there, you're in there with a load of people, and you have to stay in there until you hear the same sound being made, in the reverse, so that it's safe to come out again. But Paris, where I lived, in the middle of Paris, or northern Paris, I don't remember it being bombed, because apparently, according to history and Hitler, he loved Paris as a city and didn't want it bombed. It was too beautiful. So I wasn't involved in any bombing. But things did change and things started to disappear from shops. Whereas I would go out with my mum and we'd have really lovely days out and walk in the pavements and the boulevards, and it was pretty and it was just a happy life. And we'd look at hats and we'd buy Madeleine. I'm sure you've all heard of Proust's beautiful Madeleine, the little cakes that you dip in your tea. They're delicious. And those things disappeared. And when you went to the Jewish shops to buy your bread, they were rows. They used to hang them in not in lines this way, but they used to hang them up, rows of bagels. Now bagels can be found in the supermarket, but that's a Jewish thing. It's way back. And they disappeared, and bread disappeared, and everything disappeared. And food was hard to come by. And if you had a tin of sardines, you were well off. Really well off. But it didn't affect my immediate happiness as a child because my parents were there. And they used to take good care of me. I was a well-loved child. I know that. Because I was happy and they had fun with me and they played games with me. My father would sit at what we call a dining table. It wasn't, it was a table and 2 chairs or 3 chairs, and what he'd do is he'd get a coin and he'd put it in his hand and then he'd put it on the table and then he'd go bang and it's vanished, it's gone, it's in the kitchen now. Run to your mother and have a look and see if it's in the kitchen. Yes, it's there, Daddy. Magic. My father's magic. Those are the times I remember how I never remember being scolded or yelled at or nothing. I remember them buying me a puppy, a teeny little puppy, because we couldn't go out. And I suppose they thought that being in the house alone, I was an only child, maybe that would be, bad things. So they bought this puppy. And my mum gave it a box and one of her old, I think, cardigans or something, and made it a nice bed in the toilet. And it yelped all night. And my father said, that's it, it's going out. So the puppy lasted one night. But that's the only sad time I remember. That was sad. So the rest of the time it was cultured. I had music and relatives and aunties, and one auntie in particular had a lovely home, and she had a very nice table with a very large, it looked like a conch shell. I don't know where she got it. And she used to say, pick it up and put it to your ear. And I could hear the sea in it, I thought. And those are the sweet memories of laughter and music and people playing pianos and lots of happiness. And my mum used to take me to the theatre or to a little bistro, and she'd buy me a lemonade and grenadine, and I felt very grown up. Little girl, pavements, I was sophisticated. And then, after this, things really changed, and we couldn't go out at all. And we were told, apparently, to go to the police station and report ourselves, where they took our names and they gave us yellow stars to sew on our clothes because it said Jew on the yellow star, Yud or Yud, and therefore things got tight because you couldn't go out. There were curfews. You could only go out certain times. And then it changed again because you heard different kinds of noises, and they weren't sirens, they were cars. And the car sirens were very different. It went Nino, Nino, a bit like today. And that was bad, that sound was horrible, because then became the RAF, and they rounded up people in 1942. And that was the year that stays with me, because it was a normal day. It was sunny, and the sky was blue, and the pigeons and the things were just normal, cooing. And I was looking out of the window that day with my father. He was sitting on a chair, and I was standing next to him, and he was looking out of the window, and he said, "Oh, they're here." I didn't know what that meant. But immediately, my mother, my father, myself, and my grandmother, that's my father's mother, all went into the little bedroom next to the dining room. It was only a small flat. And we locked ourselves in there. My father locked the front door, locked the bedroom door. And we waited. And my mother pushed me under the bed. And we heard knocking and banging. Actually, before that, there was a heavy noise of boots. The stairs were made of wood. When you looked down, it looked like a spiral staircase up to our apartment. And the stairs were made of wood, and they didn't have carpets. And you could hear these heavy footsteps on the wood. And then they stopped, and then there was banging on the door. And the banging stopped because we weren't answering. And then they took an axe to the door, and they broke the door in. You could hear that, the wood breaking. They don't knock politely when they come to get you. And I didn't know what was happening, and all I could see under the bed was my mother's feet pacing up and down. And she was tearing her hair out, and it was falling in front of my eyes on the floor, and I thought, what's happening? Anyway, they eventually got us out of the bedroom, and their horrible, harsh German voices, because there was one SS man, and I know that, because when I looked up, I saw the SS on his collar. I call it a lightning flash. It was SS. And one SS, one Gestapo man, and one French policeman. So there was the Gestapo, one French policeman, and one SS man. And they told my parents to pack a small bag and hurry up, and me to shut up, because I was crying. Shut up, because you're giving me a headache. And I'm lucky he didn't do more, because at that point, I don't know what happened, but the neighbor came in from the next door flat. And because the doors weren't on, she walked in. And she was horrified and said, "What's my child doing here? How on earth, did this happen?" And she took me by the hand and calmly marched me out into her apartment, and immediately put me underneath her dining table, and she put a big chenille tablecloth over it. And I lived there for probably 3 weeks in hiding, in the dark, on my own. It was really scary. Anyway, before I left, they didn't even take much notice of me, other than tell me, "Shut up." But he said to my grandma, "We'll be back for you, old woman." So that's the day my parents were taken.